All right. I am live, everyone. After multiple delays because of more pressing matters, I finally am doing my stream on Star Wars Rebels. For those of you who are watching it after the fact, do not like just stay tuned to the end because I'm making an announcement towards the end of something I've been thinking about it like experimenting with, though I haven't thought about how this is going to work. So yeah. All right. There's no one watching at the moment as of this time, but whatever. I mean, I did delay this multiple times, and well, I have said some spicy things on my community tab, but let's not talk about that because, well, this is a Star Wars stream. So let's just focus on the topic at hand. Star Wars Rebels, Season 1. Now, I'm not going to talk about the whole show. I mean, there's like, over 60 plus episodes. I'm only covering the first 16 because there's no way I can watch that many episodes in a few weeks, unless because, well, I have other stuff I want to do and stuff I have to do. So, yeah, there's just no way. So, I'm just going to talk about some of the things I like, some of the things I don't like. I'm going to be brutally honest. I'm not just going to like try to cater to certain people because that's not what my podcasts are about. When people want honesty, um, let's just not talk about politics right now. At least at the moment, let's just keep the on topic. Anyway, regarding the Rebels, what I think of it, let's just talk about certain things that some people may or may not be familiar with. Back in 2012, Disney bought Star Wars, as you all know. And the reason I bring this up and why this is relevant is Rebels basically, well, okay, forget Rebels. I'm at backtrack. In 2012, Disney bought Star Wars. Clone Wars was on its 5th season, and the show got canceled, but Rebels replaced it. A few years after Disney bought Star Wars, the first Star Wars show after their acquisition was Rebels. In fact, it's probably their first on-screen media that had came out. It came out about a year before The Force Awakens. It came out about the year that well that well the, basically the year that has been in no remembered in infamy by EU fans. So yeah, Rebels. The show got a lot of hate when it came out. The show got a lot of hate when it came out, and some of it was warranted, a lot of it wasn't. And a lot of it had to do with various factors. EU fans hating everything that Disney was putting out at the time. Clone Wars fans being angry that their show was canceled. And there was basically a cliffhanger with when Ahsoka left the Jedi Temple at the last scene of season 5. Yes, season 6 would eventually come out for Clone Wars, but you didn't really get that many new episodes. And Rebels, like, this had a lot of hate. I know. Rebels may not have the hate now that it did back when it came out in 2014, but there was a lot of people that hated Rebels. In fact, I'd argue the hate Rebels got was more than what the Clone Wars got when it first aired. Which is interesting considering that if you compare the two shows, when they first start, Clone Wars was awful when it first started. I don't think anyone could basically say with confidence that Clone Wars was good when it first aired. And if there's one thing I will give credit to Rebels, I do think Rebels had a better first season than Clone Wars did. Simply because the first season of Clone Wars, yeah, and I will be doing comparisons because they're made by the same people pretty much. Clone Wars Season 1 was just a bunch of anthologies, which wouldn't be a bad thing, but the first few seasons of the Clone Wars, it was all over the place when it came to like chronology and continuity. Like unless you like now you could basically look up online, okay, what point does these episodes take place? Because the most optimal way to watch Clone Wars nowadays is to not watch it how it originally aired, but to watch it chronologically, because a lot of the episodes is you basically have sequels to story arcs, or you have an episode that takes place in the middle in one arc. That's why it's better to watch Clone Wars in chronological order. Rebels doesn't have this issue because Rebels is not an anthology series. It's a smaller cast of characters, and it follows one pretty much storyline. Yeah, a lot of the first few episodes of the first season are standalone episodes, but as the season progresses, there's actual continuity between episodes, so you cannot really miss that many episodes in this season. And there's only 2 episodes in the entire series that I've watched so far that you can actually skip over, because the episode with C-3PO and R2-D2 you could pretty much skip. Yeah, they mentioned the episode towards the end of the first season, but it's not really essential. The episode that guest starred Lando, it was an all right episode, but again, that episode can be skipped. Other than the 2 filler episodes, what do I think of the season overall? Well, it isn't great. I'm just gonna make that known. It isn't great. Rebels isn't. I'm not gonna lie and say, oh, this show was really good when it started. It wasn't. I mean, there's just a lot that is left to be desired for me when it comes to like I have to bring this up because I'm not going to bring this up in other review like videos regarding the animation. I am not a fan of the animation. I think the animation quality in Rebels is a huge step down from Clone Wars. And considering the fact there was cartoons that came out during that decade that came out before Rebels and aired during Rebels as well, that just completely shit on this show in terms of animation quality. From Transformers Prime, the 2012 TMNT cartoon that came out at the time, and Clone Wars, which its prior season 5 and season 6, in my opinion, just completely obliterate Rebels. Even the later seasons of Rebels, I just don't think compares to Clone Wars in terms of its animation quality. Yes, but I'm getting what I don't like of the show out of the way before I talk about the good stuff, because I'm not going to end this video on a negative note. I think the show is a little pretentious at times when it comes to pushing nostalgia. I think because back at the time before, like, The Last Jedi came out, you basically had original trilogy nostalgia like up the freaking ass. And it kind of felt like the Star Wars franchise had regressed when it came to like storytelling to some extent. Because yeah, some of the nods to the original trilogy is nice once in a while, but the thing is, when the Clone Wars did it, and the Clone Wars did it too, Rebels isn't the only one that did it. When the Clone Wars did it, they did it more subtly, and they did it through like various moments, like that one episode where Anakin like did that hand sign that Luke did it in Return of the Jedi, or with freezing them into carbonite, or various other things. There is references to the original trilogy, and there's nods to it in Clone Wars itself. And I feel like Rebels, it was just a little too obnoxious at times. I'm talking about season one. Season one. I'm just got to emphasize this. I'm not shitting on the whole show. I'm just talking about season 1. And I think the music they do sometimes through various moments, I just feel like it's really obnoxious how they're constantly have to remind us, oh, remember this music, Will Peace? Remember that? Remember this? Remember that? And I feel like back then, this was like really obnoxious. From the animation style, like the animation style, I have no issues with. It's just the animation quality is just really not that good. Oh God, Power Rangers has been awful since like the 2010s. I'm just gonna go on a little tangent because it is relevant, but I don't think Rebels is that bad when it comes to nostalgia bait because Power Rangers actually its dip in quality was noticeable. Say what you will about the Disney seasons of Power Rangers, but they're leaps and bounds better than the early Power Ranger seasons. When I'm not talking about early, I'm talking about the first 4 seasons where everything was formulaic. The characters felt shallow and one-dimensional. You had the same kind of setting. You see, the stories didn't really feel impactful. Power Rangers evolved. It started to grow up. And I feel like this series was kind of a step down from Clone Wars. Now, also, one last negative thing. I don't really care for 2 of the characters in this show. I mean, Chopper, I mean, it's okay. He's R2D2. Okay, whatever. I don't really care for this character. Better than BB-8, I'll tell you that much. And I forgot that one guy's name. He's this alien dude. He looks cool. And his voice sounds awesome, but I don't know. I just don't really particularly like his character that much. I mean, one of the early episodes heavily implied that he had something really dark about his past. And the later seasons, I think, will expand upon his character. But as of season 1, I'm not a fan of that character. I forgot his name. His name completely escapes me for the moment. Zeb. Yeah, he's a cool looking character, but there's just not much to him as of the first season. Now, what are the characters? Sabine, I think, in my opinion, I know I've heard a lot of accusations that she's a Mary Sue from certain sections of the Star Wars fandom. It's like, really? A Mary Sue. What do I think of her character? Well, I can't say, really. I mean, she's cool. I mean, she's basically she's basically, oh yeah, this you have this badass female character, which is not a bad thing. I like my female characters being cool. I mean, she knows how to fucking kick ass and take names, and I think that I find her intriguing. And what little we get from her, and not to mention she's a Mandalorian, and you can't go wrong with Mandalorians. Mandalorians are badass, and I don't care what anyone says, man. I like Mandalorians, and I want to know more about her. Hera, I think Hera's probably, I think, one of the best characters of the show. Like, she's smart, she's a great pilot, and she's a Twi'lek. It's like, which I think, yeah, I actually think this character is kind of cool. I mean, and well, I think the best character of the show, I think, is Kaden. I think Kaden is probably one of the best characters in the show, if not, no, the best character, considering he's not the kind of Jedi that you normally see in Star Wars media. He's not necessarily the most powerful Jedi, but he never actually completed his training. He was a Padawan when Order 66 happened. And he has a dark past. I know some of this stuff is explained in the comics and maybe one of the novels how Kaden met Hera, but I don't really care about that stuff. Because consider the fact that it's inevitably going to be retconned anyway, and Kaden's comic has been retconned anyway. Though if someone like have an opinion about that stuff, type below. I think his struggles in the first season to teach Ezra, I think, was a compelling story, and I felt like he was probably one of the easiest characters to connect to, at least for me. considering he's someone that is a fuck up. He doesn't know how to teach. He's basically relearning what it means to be a Jedi. And in my opinion, I think Caden is probably the closest thing we'll get to an on-screen Kyle Katarn. I know that I'm probably going to piss some EU fans saying that. But Kyle Katarn, he was a cool character in the EU, but most people don't even know about him outside of a few video games he was in. He's in, and I think Caden just being someone that has a past that he basically faces at the end of the first season. Of course, I'm looking forward to see more of his character. I think he's a really good character, at least as far as I know from the first season. And I think the guy who voices him, I think, brings that character to life. Of course, the voice cast in general in this show, I think, do a great job of voicing their characters and bringing them to life, including some of the characters that guest star. I know Billy D. Williams does do Lando, and I know, and I know like Tarkin, he sounded like the voice actor, but and it's the same voice from Clone Wars, so it's of course they're going to sound similar. Of course, the villains kind of suck. I'm not going to lie. The villains kind of suck. I mean, the Grand Inquisitor is a cool-looking character, and his voice actor, I think, does an amazing job. But I just feel like because this show was basically made for kids, this character just couldn't be the badass that he could have been. Yeah, we got some cool fights with him and Caden and Ezra, but I just feel like he was kind of a waste of a character. He could have been so much cooler. I guess you could say I didn't like that he was killed off so soon, because I feel like he was probably one of the coolest looking characters we have currently in Star Wars. And of course, let's not even get started on how embarrassingly bad he looks in Kenobi. Ugh. The way he looks in Kenobi is an abomination. But anyway, what about Ezra? Now, of course, there's been jokes. We all hear it. You guys pretty much all have heard it. Oh, he's Space Aladdin this, Space Aladdin that. How is Ezra as a character as of season 1? Remember, as of season 1, I think the show does a good job basically introducing basically a kid basically being drafted to fight the Empire, and as this, he's a reluctant hero at first. As the season goes on, he grows more confidence in himself, and I don't know what to say about his character. I don't find him as interesting as Caden, because I think Caden is a more interesting character. But I will say this: season 1 Ezra is leaps and bounds better than season 1 Ahsoka. I can tell you that much. And I think they've learned a lesson from basically don't make a character so obnoxious and so annoying. But the benefit, because unlike Clone Wars, Rebels is more focused. So you have more time to focus on Ezra. You have more time to actually develop his character, to see him in different situations. Ahsoka, you could go almost a quarter of a season without seeing her. And Ahsoka is, I'm just going to argue, in Clone Wars, or TCW for EU fans, is the protagonist. And you don't see her at all in season 6, and a good chunk of season 7. And I think having an actual protagonist from the very beginning does actually make it a lot easier to actually be invested in Ezra's character, because I don't think like Ahsoka in Clone Wars she was a character that it took me till the end of the 3rd season for me to actually to appreciate Ahsoka, because I couldn't stand her like for almost 3 seasons. And it's mostly because a lot of the stuff that Ahsoka was featured in sucked in the early Clone Wars. And I think Ezra's story from the very start, I think, does start off much better than Ahsoka's. I would piss off Clone Wars fans saying that, but I don't think Ezra's story when it begins is really bad. We gotta understand that even though Star Wars, there's a lot of adult fans of Star Wars, there's a lot of kids that watch Star Wars too. And I think having Ezra be someone that the audience themselves can relate to, so the audience basically can see themselves in the Star Wars galaxy, and having a non-white like protagonist, which Ezra isn't even white. I don't care what anyone says, he's not white. It is a good change of pace. The Ghost Crew in general, I think that I didn't expect to really care about them, but I think they're fine. I mean, of course, the most interesting among them is basically my favorite characters is Hera Hera and Kaden. But then again, I just find those characters the most interesting of the bunch. Now, as for the episodes themselves, the quantity of good episodes versus bad episodes. Now, mind you, I'm talking about the first season here. I'm not talking about the whole series. I'd say Rebels in total of the first season, I think there's about 80% of the season that is good. And I think that's impressive considering that Clone Wars, when it first started, almost majority of the first 3 seasons were just terrible in terms of the episodes. It wouldn't be until the season 4 and 5 where you have consistent when it comes to episode quality. And for me, I actually think that the episodes being less than the first season of Clone Wars works in its favor. Because I feel like if it had more episodes than 16, I feel like you would just have more bad episodes. You'd have more filler episodes. And I think it was the right call to have 16 episodes. Of course, it's probably Disney making the call. You can only do 16 episodes. Despite the limitation that was placed on them, I actually think it was a good thing that there was less episodes. So the stories were actually felt better. And speaking of the stories, I actually think the fact that Ezra does not become a Jedi, really until more than halfway through the first season, was a good call. Simply because I actually think seeing the character slowly gain more confidence and actually develop as a character and as a person, like it is towards the end of the season where he finally actually has the confidence to embrace who he is, who he's meant to be. And Caden's arc in the first season, I think, was done well too. The thing about this show, like Clone Wars before, is a slow burn. But considering the fact there isn't as many episodes being basically shoved down your throat, I feel like it's far easier for me to digest this series than Clone Wars. Because I know a lot of people don't want to hear this. A good chunk of Clone Wars is bad. When I watched season 1 of Clone Wars, when I was done with it, I didn't really want to watch the second season because I didn't really care for like a lot of the stuff. Yeah, the clone episodes in the first season, amazing stuff, great. Then again, anything in featuring the clones and the series that came before it is great stuff. And I don't think this is a pop for me to say this. I'm actually more inclined to watch the second season of Rebels than I would be for the Clone Wars. Simply because I actually think Rebels had a far better start. Yeah, despite the fact that there was a fucking Dave Filoni had a potato in terms of a budget. I mean, the animation quality is nowhere near as good as like the Clone Wars. It's nowhere near as good as a lot of other shows that were out at the time. The TMNT series that was airing, which was on its third season at the time. Transformers Prime, which was at its final season. It may not be as good as those offerings, but I do think the animation, if you could take the cheap-looking animation, I would give this show a chance. And this is coming from someone that's, for the longest time, has been anti-Disney Star Wars. And I'm telling you, I've been anti-Disney Star Wars for a very long time. I'm not here to convince you to love everything Disney Star Wars, because we all know, no, I don't like most of what Disney has offered for Star Wars. I don't. I think Rebels is a show that a lot of Star Wars fans overlook because the cheap looking art style, the animation looking childish compared to Clone Wars, and of course Star Wars fans in general. That's probably another topic for a different day about how Star Wars fans need to stop sleeping on Clone Wars and Rebels. Oh, that's first off, no. I think that's too early. I don't want to say that because I have to see the whole series because I'm not these are not my final thoughts. My thoughts can change. Because Rebels as a whole was a show I was reluctant to give a chance, but if I'm going to be able to engage with Star Wars fans, I have to do it at least the bare minimum and watch at least the current stuff that's going on. Now, if the current stuff is bad, and I think it's bad, I'm not going to continue torture myself and lying to myself and my audience. If it sucks, I will tell you. If it doesn't suck, I will tell you. Because I'm a Star Wars fan at the end of the day. And everyone here who's followed me for almost a decade now knows I'm an EU fan. I always will be more of an EU fan than I will be over the on-screen stuff. And I'm telling you as an EU fan, I think Rebels deserves to be given a chance. Because Rebels in general, it's a show that doesn't deserve to be ignored. And I'm saying this as someone that once hated everything Disney Star Wars and didn't think it had any redeeming qualities. Now, there's other stuff I can mention like as well. Like the mysterious character Volculum throughout the first season, I knew it was Ahsoka. I mean, it was pretty obvious it was Ahsoka. It was pretty obvious. Like this mysterious person, no one knows who they are. And I feel like the way Ahsoka was reintroduced into Star Wars, I thought was well done. Now, I've watched Ahsoka's first appearance in live action before I watched her reappearance in this show. So I'm not going to, I already knew this would happen. Oh God, that's nostalgia is a cancer, and I have to stay focused though. Now, would I recommend this show, or at least give it a chance? Yes, I will say yes, 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 and yes. If you are open to giving Star Wars a chance, at least other stuff, because I'm not going to force you to basically this on just like, oh, you should watch the show. No, because I'd be a hypocrite. For many years, I've been reluctant to watch this. Reluctant. Simply because of my hatred for Disney and my hatred for Disney Star Wars. So, yeah, watch this show. And if you're only watching the live action stuff, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you watching Ahsoka, but you're not watching Rebels, which is the prequel to Ahsoka? Now, what would I give Rebels anyway as the first season? I think it's impressive. I really think it is. I think that I want to watch season 2 now. I mean, the way that the season ended made me want to start the second season. Now I just pray to God. God, there's 22 episodes in season 2. I really hope. Please tell me there's not filler episodes. If there are filler episodes, please be a minuscule amount. Because for season 1 of Rebels, please don't do this to me. Season 1 of Rebels basically has made me want to watch the second season, and that has never happened for me when it came to stuff that Dave Filoni did. Because to me, the Dave Filoni effect has always been, oh, this stuff is mediocre. I don't think Rebels started off as mediocre. I think the show started off on a good note. Personally, I think the show wasn't like season 1 of Clone Wars. It feels more focused. And I do feel like this is what the Clone Wars should have been in the first place. It should have been more focused. And if you're going to do stories that don't focus on the main cast, then do that. But I feel like the first season of Clone Wars, at least it doesn't just apply the first season. It applies to all of them. Not all of them, but all but the first. When we get to season 3, it's like when you get halfway through it, that's when you see the quality like jump. But it felt so unfocused at that point. It's just, at least Rebels, at least from the very beginning, the show seems like the people who are working on it know what they want to do with this show. It's not like, hey, let's just tell some random stories and they have almost nothing to do with each other for the first few seasons. And then when you get to season 4, you have like, holy shit, wait, this is, you have this episode, you have that's this episode. Like, we have so many good episodes that you can't even keep. It's like, wait, what's the percentage of the good episodes in this series? When people talk about how good the Clone Wars was, the show, they pretty much are not going to really talk about those first few seasons, because those first few seasons are trash. Those first few seasons are trash. I'm sorry. The first few seasons of Clone Wars is trash. Rebels doesn't have this problem. Now, if season 2 is anything as good as season 1, then I'm going to be wanting to binge watch the whole series by the end of the year if that happens. Now, if I continue doing this stream, it's going to turn into another stream. So, my final thoughts of the first season of Rebels. Yes, there's some things I don't like, as I already stated, like the nostalgia baiting for the season, the overabundance of original trilogy nostalgia when it comes to music, and some lines from the original trilogy, and the constant nods to it. I just feel like, okay, we know what this is a reference to. Come on, we know this. But other than that, those superficial complaints, I think Rebels season 1 is good. Or only like 2 episodes I consider bad in the first season. And I think that's a good start for a show that I never wanted anything to do with when it first aired. So yeah. Next time, when I do a video regarding like anything on screen, it's going to be The Force Awakens. That's going to be the next video. And that's going to be a lot longer than this. However, there's an announcement I'm going to make right now, because for those of you who are sticking to the very end of this stream, I'm making an announcement. I'm considering switching the format of my Star Wars Legends reviews. And the first among them is going to be a review of the Thrawn trilogy in podcast form. Now, I've already reviewed the Thrawn trilogy in the past, but I want to revisit it again because I've learned a lot in the past, like almost 10 years now, and I feel like I feel confident that I could discuss the book on a live stream. Now, depending on the reaction to the stream, I may switch the format to podcast, because podcasts get far more reception, far more reactions than some pre-recorded video. Because I'm sorry, that's just a different tangent. I would probably go on a different day. Pre-recorded videos don't get the same attention that streams do. And if the podcast format is a way for me to have my reviews get noticed more, then that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, my Legend series the may not exist as you know it anymore, if this is what people prefer, but it will continue through another format. Simply because the landscape in 2015, when I started my reviews, when streaming wasn't a big thing as it is today, I was still able to do pre-recorded videos, and they still got the attention that they like got. Of course, also I'm not going to talk about that with Star Wars, but I have to adapt to the times. I have to, if I'm going to still review Star Wars expanded universe material, if I'm going to still review Star Wars stuff in general, I have to adjust. I have to adjust. I can't just like continue doing what I'm doing because I'm not getting the results I want anymore. And what good does it do to put all this work in editing my reviews when I only get like not even 100 views? Yes, majority of my audience that originally watched my reviews were a bunch of reactionary shitheads, but if I'm gonna put this much work into like a review and it doesn't get the results I want, then I'm sorry, I'm not going to do the fucking pre-recorded review anymore. If all I'm getting from that review is like under 100 views, it's a lot of fucking work to do. For those of you who've done reviews before, you would know what I'm talking about. Recording the review, taking the notes as you're reading the book, like making sure you got this fact right, making sure you got that fact right. And it's like, it's not worth it to me anymore. If podcast form is how people are going to want me to do my Star Wars Legends videos, then that's what's going to happen. But that's for the future. And for those of you who've come on at the very end, I'm sorry, but this stream is pretty much over. If you want to know my thoughts on Rebels, go back to the very beginning of this stream. Anyway, everyone, for those who have watched this stream and those who unfortunately came at the very end as I finished this stream, may the Force be with you. And remember, my next video is going to be about the Thrawn trilogy. So for those of you who are looking forward to me talking about the Thrawn trilogy for about an hour, look forward to that. Mark that on your calendar. It's going to happen. It's going to happen on Saturday. This Saturday, I'm reviewing the Thrawn trilogy. Stay tuned.